I've always loved doing races just because I like the atmosphere and the gathering of lots of sporty people. I don't know. So I've always liked doing races. And half marathons, I just started doing them like right before coming to Rwanda, and I really liked the distance and like the challenge, but not challenging to the point that I want to fall over like if I did a full marathon.
I wanted to accomplish something and as a Peace Corps volunteer it's difficult to see the things that you're actually doing here. So by running a half marathon I knew that there was an obvious start and obvious finish, and so I could say that I had accomplished something by the end.
I've been trying to motivate myself to run consistently at site leading up to the marathon, and so it was a good goal to set for myself in order to push myself and make myself get out of bed in the mornings.
Also, it was just a really great way for me to get out there and show the world, or aka Rwanda, for me at this point, that I can run, because a lot of people here don't really believe I can do stuff because of my arm, which is funny because running does not have anything to do with using your arms.
Well, I think for a long time I've been wanting to do like a group athletic event.
And this past year I've had a lot more time for training, so I thought I would go for the half marathon.
But so it was kind of that, kind of showing that I can do things and also getting frustrations out. Running 21 kilometers gives you a lot of time to get all of your anger out and just focus on what you're doing.
And then I also had a lot of encouragement from Michael French, the filmmaker of this, and my boyfriend, who has gone through a lot of effort and spent a lot of energy encouraging me and reassuring me, having faith that I could do such a thing as a whole half marathon.
So last year I ran the relay with a few other volunteers, Heather Newell, Sarah Gall, and John Trippy from my training class. And so I was planning on doing that again this year.
I'd never done a half marathon before, and I was honestly really intimidated by it, so I wanted to run the relay because I hadn't been running that much, so the relay was a good in-between distance.
We went to register. Michael French was with me, and when we got there and told them that I wanted to sign up for the relay, they said there's no relay this year. So their website lies, because on their website it does mention a relay.
I was actually on the way to Kigali for a meeting, and I was planning on going by the office to register, and Meredith called me and was like, guess what? There's no relay.
So I didn't want to just drop out, so I thought, well, what's 11 more kilometers? Doesn't sound too hard.
So then I postponed and kind of hemmed and hawed for a while about whether or not I was going to do the half marathon, and finally buckled down and registered.
Then we called Ginger, told her, and she decided that she would run the half with us, which was great.
The relay, I mean, they didn't even offer it this year, but it was a lot of fun last year. But I've been training more this year, so I wanted to do the half instead.
So, on the day of the marathon, we arrived early in the morning. When we first arrived, we started getting warmed up for the marathon, and then all of a sudden there was a call for all the half marathoners to gather on the line outside the stadium.
So we started outside of the Amahoro Stadium. When we initially started, we were kind of together in a big group. I was with Heidi and Lauren and Meredith. And we kind of stuck to the back of the group because, you know, you don't want to wear yourselves out too quickly at the beginning of your race.
Then just after, I started looking for other Peace Corps volunteers to hand off my camera to. I was running around the stadium frantically looking for someone to give the camera to, and for some place to put the bags. All the other volunteers left me with all their personal belongings, and no one set up a bag room at the marathon headquarters. So after getting that, handing off my camera to Mr. Nate Peterson. I was ready to get started. Ready to get started. Now it's time for the fun part. I got my watch, has no wristband, so it just goes in my pocket. And I got a pocket full of peanuts. The only sport food that I brought. So we'll just see how this goes. I was so happy that I brought the peanuts in the beginning of the run because there was no other food throughout the entire course unless I decided to stop at an alimentation and buy it. So my goal time today is going to be 200 minutes, 3 hours 20 minutes. So, see what happens.
Good luck, man.
Thank you.
We were running down to Gashushu.
Just a little cruising speed, building up when we went down. Made the little turn at Gashushu towards the Peace Corps office.
We couldn't actually see Carrie. Carrie had gone straight ahead.
Carrie kind of shot off like a rocket and left the rest of us behind.
I mean, like, literally, like, in the first 5 minutes of the marathon, she was quite far ahead of us. The course continued kind of down past the MTN Center.
Continued into Nyaratarama toward more expat, rich people houses.
That part of Kigali is kind of like very secure. You find a lot of the international embassies there, like the Ugandan embassy and the Tanzanian embassy.
And then we just went up a series of hills. On the way up the hill, I heard Rwandans notice 3 things about me very loudly. That I was white, that I was running, and I had tattoos.
We kind of reached an area that I'm not familiar with, but it was like straight uphill, like a very steep incline.
There was the one hill going up by that gas station, which I don't know the name of that part of Kigali, but that hill was killer.
The last hill, which was quite steep, I ran it the first time.
Most of the people I saw just kind of like grabbed their bottle of water at the bottom of the hill, and then you kind of, I mean, it's kind of pointless to run it because when you run it, you'll probably go as quickly as you would if you were walking.
Well, they had water bottles, and so they would hand those out to you when you ran by, and then drink whatever you could, and I usually threw mine after that because I can't run with anything in my hands.
Most of us were just walking and kind of like, you know, recovering from, you know, all of the sun and drinking some water, and sometimes people gave us some sponges so we could just pour some water over our heads as we were running.
It was interesting because there were a bunch of little kids along the way who were just waiting for people to throw their water bottles so they could collect just either the empty water bottles or use the water that was still left in them. So, I mean, I guess it's a good thing because someone was using the rest of that water.
So I think that was one of my favorite parts of the whole marathon, was just like being running somewhere in Africa and people just popping out of places and handing you water. And sort of in that area, you go past these like giant houses that are mostly like gated, and so each house has its individual like gates, and it's like all these security guards and stuff.
Went around past some more expensive houses, and then went back down those gradual hills that we went up before.
And it was worth it because there was a really cool like lookout point on the top of the hill.
I did have a pacer. I'm not sure what nationality she was, but I think Rwandan. I kind of found her maybe about half an hour into the run, and my goal was to keep her in my sights. I had her run in front of me, and she just ran ran slowly for pretty much the whole way, and then I managed to pass her about 3/4 of the way through, and I didn't see her again after that, so that was nice.
One of the people I was running with was this Rwandan guy. He was really incredible. He only had one leg, and he was like supporting himself on 2 crutches, kind of like when you have trekking poles. And he just had like his 2 crutches, and he was running, and we were like totally going the same pace. So he was like my running buddy for most of it. We didn't talk a whole lot. I'm not much of a running talker. Kind of just stay focused on what I'm doing.
Yeah, I ended up keeping pace with Heidi, who was a health volunteer, and I had never met Heidi before the marathon, so it was really fun just to chat and exchange stories about our service while we were running.
I had seen Michael French, and so we had passed each other and done like a running high five type of deal, but to keep us going, to really put us in the marathon spirit.
It was really cool to be running with the professional runners. I've never run with runners of that caliber before.
When I reached the 10K marker, a whole group of Kenyans and Tanzanians just raced past me with their cameraman on a motorcycle in front of them.
So there was this really inspiring and depressing moment where I was on the way back towards the stadium after the turnaround, and I hear this thundering of feet behind me, and I turn around and it's this wave of beautiful African runners. And it was really inspiring because they look so fluid and graceful, and then as they passed me I realized how slow I was going.
So I felt a little bit defeated, but that was to be expected. So
Professional runners, always very impressive. I've grown up with marathons because my dad does them. We always would see the Kenyans and Ethiopians winning every race, so I'm kind of used to that. But it's always still exciting and crazy to see how fast they can really go for such a long time.
As I had run by the Peace Corps office, the guards were kind of just standing out there because their post is literally like on the street. So I was kind of like running and yelling, "Hey, Muni Way," and "Yeah, I love you," and "Peace Corps rules." And they were all excited and waving back. At that point, I think I was cranking Tupac. I felt pretty cool. I was so focused on my running that I was not feeling like I was exerted, or I felt really good, like I still had a lot of energy left. As I ascended the hill, there was this woman who was wearing like a fuzzy suit, and she was like wearing this gigantic gorilla suit, and it was like she was running the marathon in order to promote funds or something for the gorillas.
Yeah, it was a highly disorganized event, very poorly run.
The course was not really that clearly marked.
The worst was going through the roundabout, heading towards the stadium.
There was like one traffic policeman kind of like waving traffic, but a little bit half-assed,
who thought it would be a good idea for all the runners to go through traffic around the roundabout.
And so I had to like sprint across this roundabout because there was like all this traffic and no one was really stopping for the runners. So that was like felt like I had a death wish going through there.
And once we got back to the stadium, we had to do the last loop that was all around the whole stadium and then back around to enter and finish. And a lot of the other marathon or half marathon runners were not told the correct directions.
Like after the first group came through, the workers stopped caring and didn't direct the half marathoners on the last loop around the stadium and just had us come straight into the stadium.
We're not really sure if it was a full half marathon. It might have been a mile or two short, but I'm honestly okay with it because at the end of the race I was tired, but I finished strong, and I feel like if I had had to run another 2 miles after that, it would have been a lot harder. So I'm really happy with the feeling I had when I finished.
I was dying by that point. There were very few other marathon runners out because they were probably told to not run the full amount, and so I was a little confused on that last loop about where to go.
Then I saw people guiding the half marathoners into the stadium, not really asking them if they had finished the lap around the stadium. But since I had the full marathon number on, they said, no, you keep going around.
After finishing the race, I went up into the stands. There were some other volunteers that brought students from their schools for a healthy living workshop, and they ran a 5K. So I went and sat in the stands and chatted with the students that were there and cheered as everyone came around their final lap in the track.
I did see some younger people, some younger than me, running flip-flops, plastic shoes. Saw a couple of people running without any shoes at all.
A big thank you to Nate, Becca, Ella was doing some filming. Also saw Alex Bach, Heather too,
And Alyssa.
and some other folks sitting up in the stands. Thanks you guys for all of your support, and I missed you during the relay last year.
Yes, yes, yes!
I asked some girls that were walking outside, and they just told me they waved me into the stadium, so I was like, okay, we'll just go in there. So I ran my victory lap around, came through the finish line.
Shake it, Kigali. Shake it, Kigali. West Coast.
That was awesome. Dude, what's up, girl? Give me some love. At the starting line, I was like, oh damn, where's that Heather?
I found Carrie had finished quite a little while before I did, and she had informed me that they had not clearly marked the course and we didn't run the full half marathon.
I was going at a pretty good pace, like to get my PR, and in the end it turned out that it was only 18 kilometers instead of 21, so that was a little disappointing.
But I managed to find my way, and so I ran the full 21 kilometers.
So, continued back around the stadium, do the same route I ran before, but I was running into a problem. I needed an emergency stop at a toilet. So, I found this one restaurant that I'd been to a few times before, called New Fiesta. I went in there, I looked at the guy, I said, toilet, hey. And after a few minutes, I headed back out and continued down on my run, feeling much more refreshed.
We looked for the students who had gone missing that had mysteriously ran a half marathon instead of a 5K fun run.
So some of the students who were supposed to run the 5K fun run accidentally stumbled upon the marathon start and wound up running an entire lap around the half marathon. One of them was pacing me this entire time through the first lap, and he was still going at an admirable speed, but of course not in the right place.
We also were waiting for Michael French to cross the line and do his victorious finish for his second marathon ever.
By the time I reached the uphills at Nyarutarama, there was no one around. I would look up and down the street, no one was anywhere to be seen. Right when I was passing the MTN Center, I ran into Lauren, who was asking me how I was doing, and I said it's going very painfully right now.
I was really impressed. By the time I saw Michael heading back on his second lap, it was really hot outside, and I know I was tired and I only ran half the distance.
And she was encouraging me, said, go ahead, finish strong. And I kept that in mind as I trekked up the final hill.
There was no food. I was hoping that there would be bananas along the way. I was offered one banana towards the very end, but other than that, nothing. So that was pretty difficult.
I know it was an issue for some people because especially full marathoners do not have any fruit or anything along the way, but I'm kind of weird when I run and I can't eat or drink, so it didn't really affect me very much.
I was feeling really weak by the time I passed the Peace Corps office, so I jumped into a little alimentation, grabbed myself a nice bottle of juice, and started drinking that on the way back up the hill. I just eventually started working my way back up from a walk to a trot. The second time I ran through that roundabout, I just said forget it, and I went across the street and up towards the stadium without going through the roundabout and risking my life a second time. Continued into the stadium, and last year when I entered the stadium, I got so excited I just started sprinting around the track. This year, I tried again to sprint, and immediately my legs shut down.
Komera, Michael!
Got a minute and a half for my goal time.
Yeah.
Yeah!
He have to finish the marathon. Yeah.
I started to run, but my legs said, no more. Just had a cramp all the way up my leg.
Okay.
Both of them. From my calf, my quadricep, everything just refused to move. So I hobbled around the track for a little while. Two men immediately ran out to help me up, and one of them was trying to bring me into the aid station, and the other one said, no, you gotta finish. And I was like, yeah, I gotta finish.
Yo. Slowly. Not hard. Slowly.
Woo!
I started again jogging, worked up to speed, and wound up crossing the finish line. I did it! I reached my goal. 3 hours, 19:55. Carrie headed home because she had to do our 6-hour bus ride to get back to site so she could teach the next day, which is pretty crazy.
But then Meredith, French, and I celebrated by going directly across the street to the nearest Mietzig bar and drinking some beer to replenish our carbohydrate supply.
Welcome to the marathon after party, where we bring lots of ibuprofen as well as
Peanuts. Beer. Water.
Meredith, what did you bring to the party?
I brought beer, water, biscuits.
What did you wear for the marathon?
I wore this shirt, a blue shirt.
Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends shirts. It's got a lot going on. It's got some stylish cut to it. Found it at the market.
Also brought my barefoot shoes, my barefoot soles.
My shoe choice sucked
Why?
because these shoes are like 4 or 5 years old, you know, including the time I've been in this country. And so there's no arch supports and my feet are very sore right now. That's why I'm not wearing shoes on this photo.
I have my Adidas shoes that are full of mud.
This is the first marathon I finished barefoot, so.
Did you experience any chafing today?
Yeah, I did.
Where?
Armpit.
Okay, armpit chafe.
I actually thought it was pretty good. Like, as hilly as Rwanda is, it wasn't terrible as far as hills go. There were a couple pretty rough hills, but we've been training in our villages, so we're kind of used to that by now.
The course, it was good. It was just really different because at site I'm used to running on the dirt all the time, just packed dirt roads rather than asphalt. So the switch, it was a little bit harder on the legs, but it was good. And I don't make it into Kigali that often, so it was a really good way to be able to see new parts of the city and get a lay of the land.
Definitely the first time for me to do a half marathon.
That was my first experience doing like a formal running event, so it was really, really cool. Felt good.
And as far as Rwanda, it was everything I expected. A little disorganized, no food along the way, and pretty hot, and a lot of hills.
Last year the marathon route only went to the MTN Center and then came back to the stadium. And for a full marathon we had to run it 4 times. And for the half marathon they ran it twice. And they had the relay, which went 1 time around.
The course was pretty similar, but we went further down for the half. And I think just in general they made the loop longer this year. So that was nice because we didn't have to do a double loop for the half marathon. We could just do 1 loop.
I guess a good reason for the lack of planning on behalf of the Rwandan people is that this really isn't a running culture. A lot of people didn't really understand what running is or why we need to go for so far. And according to the New Times article published the day after the marathon, no Rwandans finished the full marathon here in Kigali, Rwanda.
I don't really know how much time it took me, and I wish they would have posted times online.
So after the marathon, I went online to check my time, and they never posted it. It's still not online. So there's no official time of me finishing, but the time that I have on my stopwatch is what I'm saying is my official time. And this includes that stop for the bathroom break as well.
It was a lot of fun. It was a really nice day, great weather, lots of interesting people.
Yeah, I was happy finishing.
So, although it was a difficult and disorganized adventure, it was still well worth it. And I can say exactly the same thing for all my Peace Corps service.
Pretend like you're cheering again!